Hey everybody, it's Bill again from Eastside Hot Rods, and today we're going to talk about our new Project Cheap Jeep. So I picked this Jeep up. It's an '84 CJ7 for $2,000 just a couple weeks ago, and pretty incredible Jeep. It's all there, and it's pretty much original for the most part. It's got a terrible paint job. The paint has fallen off of it. A whole bunch of rust, as you can see along the windshield frame there. It's been sitting in Seattle for over 3 years, just kind of parked on the side of the road. Previous owner said that it ran and drove when he parked it, and then life got busy and he didn't really get a chance to get back to it. So he decided it was time to cut it loose and let somebody else play around with it. And that's where I come in. So what I want to do with this is take it on a trail ride this coming weekend. So it's Monday evening already. This thing kind of runs, I'll tell you the story in a moment, but hasn't for 3 years, and it hasn't been on the road in well over 3 years. So I may have my work cut out for me, but we'll give it a try. So let's take a closer look at this thing. All right, so let's take a closer look at this. So as you can see, it's seen better days on the paint. The rust along the windshield there is pretty bad, so I'll have to eventually take care of that, and I'll turn this thing into a pretty cool project, I think, over time. This tire doesn't hold air very well, so we'll have to deal with that. And get some patch or plug or something into the tire. The back corner back here looks like it got backed into a tree or something. The old whip antenna is missing. It does have a hard top and hard doors, which is really nice. And then there's plenty of rust in the body too, in the typical places, as you can see. So it's pretty much an original-ish type of Jeep here. Door panels are actually here. That door doesn't open very good over on that side. Stereo doesn't work, pretty much falls out of the slot. Bunch of wires and stuff just kind of dangling there that I don't know what they go to. It's a 5-speed, and the 5-speed was rebuilt. I've got the receipt for it, which is cool. So that's good. Hopefully it'll stay together long enough for us to drive it. That seat is different than this seat, but they're both original CJ seats. This one's just a little bit more ripped up. Pretty dirty overall. The back seat actually is surprisingly good, but it's not a flip and tumble, so it looks like it's fixed position. It's got its roll bar in here, so dash is all cracked up, so perfect trail rig. It'll be great. Let's take a look underneath the hood. So under the hood here, we've got the 4.2 liter, the 258 cubic inch straight 6. Wearing seen better days. A lot of hoses everywhere. You can see it's got a vice grip clamping off the vapor return line. So we'll have to figure out why somebody decided that was a good idea. Otherwise, you know, it's all there, and frankly, it's not totally butchered. I did put a new battery in it, and then down the side, of course, the plastic valve cover, despite the fact it's been replaced, is already warped, and it is leaking like a waterfall of oil down the side of the block. So we'll see if we can get that all taken care of tonight. The mechanical fuel pump had been taped off and was connected to an electric fuel pump. Of course, the electric fuel pump no longer worked, so had to take care of that as well. All right, so when my friend Jeff brought this thing over to the place here for us to start working on it, we were so excited we just couldn't wait to tear into it. So I grabbed the battery out of my Wagoneer and dropped it in here, so we had a good strong brand new battery. We cut out the old electric fuel pump. I happen to have another one in the garage, so I grabbed that and we plumbed that into its place with a couple new fuel lines. It still has the old fuel filter here up on top. We gave it a kick with some juice, checked the oil. It looked like it still had oil down there, so we were happy about that. And we drained the fuel out of the tank. So we started it once through a fuel can. Then the second time, we decided we'd pump all the excess fuel out from the tank. So we went underneath here, and where the fill line is, underneath the car here, we disconnected that, and we were able to pull all the old fuel out. So put in a couple gallons of new fuel, and you won't believe what happened. It actually started right up for us and sounded pretty good. So a little coolant in there, and everything seems to be in place. So that's a good sign. I am going to drain all that stuff out and replace all of the fluids, all the rubber hoses, the belts, the fuel pump, the air cleaner, and lots of parts here before we take off. I did notice that the headlights don't work, so if we're going to go spray this thing down, we got to go now. All right, so we're going to give this thing a try and see if it starts up. So this is about a week ago when we got it running. It took us about 20 minutes to get running. Now I'll see, I haven't actually started it or done anything since then. So give it a couple squirts. I think I hear the fuel pump running right now. Let's give it a bit of gas here. The belt squeal going on there, but this thing fires right up. So it's gonna be fun to drive. We'll see how it goes. Okay, it seemed to kind of go on the road for the first time in several years, and that's cool. It's smelling like smoke, like there's oil burning off on the headers or the exhaust, or probably everything. Gauges kind of read, I don't know if they're accurate or not, but it shows it's got oil pressure, voltage, and running about mid-range on the cooling, which is nice. No gas in this thing, and the speedometer is not even close to being accurate. Plus, I think the seat's breaking because I kept falling backwards into the back seat. So I may need to do something about that at some point in time. But let's get this thing washed up and see what it looks like underneath all the grease. Well, I think I went a little bit crazy with the pressure washer, and I pressure washed a bit too much of the electricals in here, or maybe down the carburetor, one of the two. So we're gonna have to let her dry out a little bit. I may see if I've got a screwdriver that I can pop the cap off, make sure it's dry underneath there, and looks good, and then we'll pop the cap back on, and hopefully she'll fire up for us. We'll find out. All right, so what we have is the cap off here, and we're gonna look inside, and I don't see any water or anything in there, so maybe it wasn't coming from here. Hopefully I didn't toast the coil or anything. The rotor's definitely seen better days. Got a burn mark on top of it, but the points all look dry, so that's positive. So we'll just go ahead and clamp that back on, and then see if my connections are still in place here for the electric fuel pump to make sure it can pump fuel. And yeah, we'll just give it another try here in a second. I think it's kind of cooled down a little bit, and we'll check all the spark plug wires to make sure they've stayed in place and on, which they appear to. So that's a good thing. Dude, cake. All right, all we got to do now is button this thing back up, say a couple prayers, and hope she fires back. Hey everyone, I just wanted to follow up on the video about the Jeep, the 84 CJ7. We ended up taking it, and it turned out to be a fantastic trip. So for 5 straight days, I worked on it day and night, trying to replace everything, and maybe we could look at a couple of the items that I did and talk about those. And then Friday night, I drove it for the first time down the hill. It worked perfect. Saturday morning, first thing in the morning, I loaded it up with my gear and took it on a 300-mile round trip off-roading camping trip, and just had an absolute blast with 3 of my friends. So it was a super great trip. I was so happy with how this thing ran and performed. It handled everything on the trail that it encountered. It was a bit bumpy like you'd expect any old CJ to be, but overall the thing just worked perfectly. So fired up when it needed to, and did great. I know under the hood here I had done a bunch of work, and it's still real dirty from the trip, but replaced the valve cover. And when I did the valve cover, I torqued down the 2 rocker arms too tight, so you could hear the valve train clicking quite a bit. So I had to make that adjustment when I got home. The battery worked out great though. It's got new battery, new plugs, distributor, rotor, tons of hoses, new battery cables, new solenoid, new fuel line, new fuel pump, new fuel filter, new air filter. I think other things under the hood here that I did in the nights that led up to the trip that we took. In addition, you can see over here on this side, again, super dirty now from the trip, but these 2 relays power the new LED headlights. So if you look at the LED headlights, they look like old school headlights, but inside it's a modern LED light. Totally blasted a bunch of great light. New light switch, new dimmer switch. Had the bikini top on it for the trip with the half doors, which are still on it, and I put in a windjammer behind it, so it made it really nice going down the highway. Also, the day before, I picked up these wheels for $120 for all 4 of the wheels, and they had never been mounted before, and they happened to be the 5x5.5 pattern I needed for the Jeep. So I had these old tires sitting here, and I put these tires on it, and the tires probably have 500 miles on them, even though they're a few years old now. So it turned out to be the perfect combination for the Jeep, and made it great out on the trail. Yeah, inside it, the only other thing that I'd kind of mention is that I picked up this Tuffy box, again, OfferUp or Craigslist or something. I think it was $140, but it was about half the price of a brand new one or less. And this thing is rock solid. That is such a nice quality box. I couldn't believe it. So really happy with that. Just overall, I love this Jeep and just had a blast with it. And I look forward to taking that on lots more adventures. And just goes to show that with a little bit of energy and ambition and a few bucks and a whole lot more elbow grease, you can build your own 4-wheel drive vehicle for next to nothing and drive a vintage 4-wheel drive. So we got some highlights from the trip too. A couple of the highlights are we took the Jeep up a massive rock formation, and I kind of backed it up to the back end of it, and you'll see it in the picture. And it was a cool place just to kind of get a scenic view. Other pictures that we have are from the campsite that we found. Like, we were truly in the middle of nowhere. It was a hunting camp, I believe, that had been established, but clearly nobody around for miles and miles, and turned out to be a great place to camp for the night. And then there's a couple other kind of photos that you'll see scattered throughout here that just kind of show some of the trails and everything. This all took place outside of Liberty, Washington, which is just kind of north of Ellensburg and Cle Elum, off of Blewett Pass. And there are just, I swear, hundreds of miles of trails out there. Finally, one other shot that I've got here is of, the 3 rigs that we had out there at one of the lookout points. And I think it's called Lion's Head. And Lion's Head, just beautiful, spectacular views, and you can see the 3 vehicles there. So really fun trip. Look forward to doing it again someday.